the world is changing fast.
The biggest trend in the world today is the arrival of AI.
AI is more profound than fire or electricity.
Technology that has no limit.
And AI is redefining every aspect of it. How we live, how we work, how we build our future. In every shift, there's a choice. Stand back or step up. AI Strategy Institute. Empowering leaders in the age of AI.
So, hello everyone. I'm very excited for our session this week. Actually, I have been looking forward to the session the whole week. My name is Tristan. I'm the founder of the AI Strategy Institute, also a lecturer at the Technical University of Munich and a faculty member for AI for the Boston Consulting Group. And today with me, I have Huub, who is the chair of the competent authorities on AI in the European Union. He's going to introduce himself a little bit more in the session. But please, for those who haven't visited or attended any of our live sessions or Brownback sessions that we have, feel free to comment, say hello, also put your questions. While we're discussing, we're going to look at the comments and see if the questions make sense and bring them in directly, or something, or like after 45 minutes, 40 minutes, we're definitely going to switch over to your audience Q&A. So say hello, feel free to actively engage and participate in the discussions if you have questions. And I'm very excited today because today we're going to get a little bit more insights into how the competent authorities might think about when it comes to regulating artificial intelligence. This is an event I've been looking forward to a lot. One of the reasons for this is the EU AI Act is live, and it's going to go live in several steps. And in the countries, the competent authorities, so I'm from Germany, like the Bundesnetzagentur, they actually have time until the 2nd of August to be formed. That means right now we have a regulation, but in the countries, the authorities that are going to oversee the regulation haven't been formed yet. So that's why I'm looking forward very much today to speak to Huub, who's the chair of these competent authorities or the working group of the competent authorities on AI. So Huub, thank you very much for being there. And as always, would like to give you the time to tell a little bit about yourself, your background, and how did you find your way into AI supervision and regulation?
Thank you, Tristan. Thank you for inviting me and welcome everybody. So my name is Huub Janssen. I work for the Dutch Supervisory Authority, the RDI, the authority that supervises the digital infrastructure. And I was asked already in 2020, so almost 5 years ago, they said AI is coming. It's going to be part of the companies that we are supervising, like the telecom or the cybersecurity of the energy sector. And what should we do about it? How do we regulate? How do we check if it's compliant with regulation? So we started quite slowly in the first few years on trying to organize it within our own agency. But we already started also collaborating with other competent authorities within the Netherlands because we all wanted to learn how to do it and to help each other. And that started with a few competent authorities, and now it's about 25 competent authorities that all have a role in supervising AI. And it shows a bit that AI is going to be part of everything. So you cannot look at an AI system by itself. If an AI system is part of a medical device, you need expertise on medical devices in order to see whether or not the AI in that device is safe or not safe. So competent authorities need to collaborate because it's always a mixture of cybersecurity, legal advice, data, and also sectoral use. So there's a lot of collaboration needed. So we started in the Netherlands with this working group of competent authorities, but we're all supervising European legislation. So that's in 2021. We started with a European working group of competent authorities. It's an informal working group, and the purpose was just to make sure that everybody can learn from each other, share information, share use cases. From the beginning, ENISA and the European Commission were part of the working group. So that's how we started, and that was even prior to any discussion about the AI Act. So we started in quite an early stage, mostly information sharing. And then in the last few years, there was a lot of discussion about the AI Act, and now the AI Act is into place. So more and more, the working group is talking about how do we get a kind of level playing field in Europe? What do all the competent authorities need to know? How are we going to interpret the legislation? And how are we going to prioritize our supervision? How are we going to do it? And that's I talked to that with Tristan, and he said, well, that's really useful because I noticed that a lot of companies are a bit wary. What will the AI Act, what kind of effect will it have? And especially when it comes to innovation, can I invest in it? Can I get investors? There's a lot of insecurity. And I told him I'd love to talk about it because it's very much competent authorities want to stimulate innovation as well. So working on innovation, supporting supervision in a way. So that's why I want to talk about to make sure that people understand what the actual meaning of the AI Act is and what you should look at. And because if you look at the legal text, it's a lot of pages. There's a lot of other documents like guidelines and whatever. And it's good to read them if necessary, but most of all, it's important to understand the meaning of it because that will help you focus. And I would like to talk a bit about how I think the AI Act will help and stimulate innovation instead of limit it.
Yeah. Amazing. You already kind of like mentioned a little bit kind of like the idea also what I want to definitely do talking about innovation, because I come also from the startup scene, and there was always the AI Act. Not so much the problem was with the AI Act, but more often what we had is kind of like challenges with how do we have to interpret this? How will this put in practice? And I want to spend some time talking about this in a bit. What I want to understand, maybe also for the listeners, is what is maybe the back of the competent authority under the AI Act? So what powers and responsibilities will they have when it comes to enforcing the AI Act?
Competent authorities are the ones that are going to enforce it. So that's the purpose. The only ones that can enforce it are competent authorities or supervisory bodies. And in Germany, that's mainly the role of the Bundesnetzagentur, and there's a central role in Austria for the RTR. So we are the ones that are going to supervise it. So that's why I think it's important to understand how we look at it. Before, so everybody can tell you how they think it is, but we are the only ones that are going to do it.
Yeah, that's true, and this is why I think it's so interesting to speak to you, and maybe just kind of like to understand. Maybe you can give us a little bit of insight. I mean, how are you then preparing currently right now that you can supervise the AI Act, the implementation of the AI Act? What is the preparation that are happening? Because, I mean, you have 3 months until the 2nd of August.
We have minus 3 months since the February 2nd, when the regulation, the prohibitions started already in the AI Act. And then in 3 months, it's the high risk Annex 3, and the next year it's high risk Annex 1. So there's several moments that the AI come into place, but at the same time we see a lot of important issues not yet dealt with. So we still need standards and harmonized standards. We still need some additional guidelines, implementing acts, delegated acts. So not everything is clear from day one. But that's okay. That's when it comes to product safety regulation, that's often the case. In the beginning, everybody needs to grow into a new situation. So it's not clear, you cannot be clear exactly on day one what you need to do. So you're not going to be having a lot of issues with your competent authorities if it's not all in place yet. So both on the side of the competent authorities, we need some guidance, we need to learn, we need to build capacity, but also on the side from the companies that are going to invest and are going to put AI products on the market, we are all going through a learning curve in the first few years. But it's important to understand this is product safety regulation. Mm-hmm. So first of all, if you read the AI Act and you think you know how it works, you don't. Because if you don't understand the umbrella on which this is under, so the product safety regulation is the umbrella, and this is just one, I think this is number 73 of the product safety regulations that is specifically under that. The idea of the product safety regulation is that the products are safe. And that means that they will need a CE marking. It's just like the products you buy in the shop. If you go to the supermarket, if you go to a toy store, they all have a minimum safety that they need to comply with. And on top of those minimum requirements, which are in the AI Act, there's a lot of space for competition, but you can't compete on the safety of people. So that's important to understand. So when it comes to the priorities, so where are we preparing for, and what are the priorities? Mainly, how do we see the main risks, and we focus on the main risks. So the higher the risk, the more attention you might get from competent authority. If it's low risk, and especially in the first few years, that's not a big issue.
Yeah. So maybe let me recap what you said. So what you said is like often, or the feeling that I have in the market, there's often a lot of confusion when it comes to the AI Act. And the reason for this is maybe GDPR, because GDPR was the last big regulation we had from Europe. And now I feel a lot of people, when they're thinking about the AI Act, they will be thinking about, okay, well, the last regulation we had from Europe was GDPR. So the AI Act must be very similar to GDPR. And the challenge that I have in Germany is that we have been not so good when it comes to adopting GDPR, and it created a lot of challenges. I know initially there were like stories of people even thinking about if they have to take off the names on the bells because it's not GDPR compliant, and there was a lot of confusion what it meant being GDPR. There were also in Germany some litigation, some cases where people were suing other people around GDPR. So what you're saying, the first thing that we need to understand is that the AI Act is completely different than GDPR and what we see when it comes to enforcement, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it's really completely different. It looks more like the NIS directive, this Network and Information Security, so cybersecurity, because that's with open norms as well, and also more risk-based. So where the GDPR is very legalistic, you either comply or you not comply. It's like driving through a red traffic light, you drive through it or you don't. This is more about general safety and that you need to do effort to make sure it's safe, but it's not that clear. And if the competent authority thinks you're not complying with the AI Act, it always starts with the dialogue. And if we think a company, after the dialogue, we still think that they are not compliant, we have to give them the time to take mitigating measures in order to be compliant. And only if they don't do it, then maybe in the end, there's going to be a fine. But a fine is kind of last resort. If everything fails, then the last thing we can do is a fine. And often with the GDPR, people have the feeling that's the first thing that's going to happen, and that's not. So the approach, the risk-based approach is different, and the dialogue and the fact that you always get time to take mitigating actions are really different.
So let me recap this. So what you're saying is it's not the goal to immediately, once you have challenges when complying or you don't comply, of these competent authorities to come directly in to punish you, but then more their goal is kind of like to help you to comply with the AI Act, and only then, as a last resort, if they see there's kind of like, even after helping you, there is nothing, then the punishments should become into place.
Yes. So what is competent authority where you do, if you think that it's not compliant, you're going to check, have they started trying to comply? If somebody really on purpose does not do anything with AI safety and puts it on the market, then you're going to intervene much faster and much harder, especially if the risks are big. But if you see that a company has tried to have some basic things on product safety on the AI system, then it always starts with a dialogue.
Yeah. So then we have, for instance, a question from Bijou. So he says, when can the competent authority start imposing penalties? August the 25th or August the 26th? So you say, like, you don't expect, and it's not the goal, the day they come in, that there is here punishment, but the idea is, as you already said, especially at the beginning, it's going to be a lot of learning by doing and see how the market reacts to the regulation. And then the last resort at some point should be fines.
Yes, absolutely. So it's not really interesting when a competent authority can start imposing penalties. As a competent authority, if we have a feeling there's already an issue in the market, we're not appointed yet. We're not maybe legally starting to supervise. But if we think there's an issue, we can start discussing, because there will be a kind of a process before you get to the area of giving a penalty. So I shouldn't focus too much on the penalties.
Yeah, and then, but in general, what do you think? There has been also, when we look now at the AI Act, there has been also a lot of criticism of the AI Act, that it's kind of like imposing innovation. Where do you think the regulation is currently doing a good job, and where do you understand the concerns of the people, and maybe what can be the role of these competent authorities then to address the concerns of the people?
First of all, I think that the AI Act will stimulate innovation. So as I said, the only thing what it does, when it comes to, so if you're going to invest in AI systems, you want to make sure you want to have clarity on where do you need to put your money in, where do you need to focus on. And if you want to invest in AI systems that are going to be prohibited, that's not a very good investment to invest in that. So at least you have clarity on the prohibitions. When it comes to the transparency rules, that doesn't really impact innovation, because you can still make your AI system. The only thing is, if it's something that's going to interact with humans, that there must be some notification you're interacting. So that doesn't really impact, I think, the AI system that you're going to build. Then it could be high risk. If it's high risk, at least there's clarity on the minimum requirements. Because often people say it must be ethical AI, but what's ethical? That's very difficult to understand or to agree upon what is ethical. So at least Europe helped us by defining what's ethical and responsible AI, and then at least the minimum requirements. So you have clarity on the minimum requirements you need to fulfill. Those are the things that you want as a person as well. I don't want to be able, if there's an AI in a robot, I don't want the robot to kill me. It must be safe. If it's going to do harm to people, you don't want people like your own family to be endangered, or their fundamental rights being infringed or whatever. So the minimum requirements aren't that strange. They're the things you want to do normally as a company, as a valid company, you would like to do that. And apart from that, everything else is completely free to competition. So the AI Act gives you clarity on which market is prohibited. So I'm not going to invest in it. If it's high risk, you can still invest, but at least so that means something also for your liability. Your liability is lower because you have more clarity on the things that you need to look at. And for the rest, it's completely free for any competition. And in addition, there's also the regulatory sandboxes. And regulatory sandboxes, that's a bit like what you said. It's to help companies be able to be compliant with the AI Act, especially if you do innovation that don't really easily fit within the AI Act, or if you touch on a kind of struggle between the different legislations, the AI Act and the medical device regulation, for example, then competent authorities are going to help you getting the answers how they relate and how we're going to supervise. So I think that the main purpose of the AI Act will be that it will stimulate innovation, similar to, for example, I'm a telecom regulator. When we had the GSM standard or the 3G, 4G, 5G, that's usually helpful for the industry to innovate.
Yeah, maybe what fits in there. So it seems like a lot what kind of like the goal of the competent authorities is really to help you to comply with the regulation. But what we're seeing is at the moment, I think there's probably a lack of education and being sufficiently educated. I mean, we see it, for instance, in China or the US, where they start now bills on for AI literacy, even having AI literacy in schools. Do you think then, especially at the beginning, the main job of these competent authorities is a lot of doing this education and providing compliance frameworks, or is this for someone third party to provide?
Both. So yes, competent authorities need to help in interpreting the legislation and tell how are we going to supervise. And in the last in-person meeting of the competent authorities that we had a presentation from the RTR in Austria about their AI service desk. And everybody's really enthusiastic about it, about their approach and what they're doing. And it set a kind of example also for other competent authorities in order to help companies to be compliant. At the same time, and on a European level, you get, and a global level, you get standards which might help to show that you're compliant with legislation. But we are not the only ones. So it could be that you want advice from consultancy firms. It could be that you need notified bodies in order to be your product, you can get your products certified under the AI Act, especially Annex 1 high risk. So there are multiple companies, but and organizations, also ministries in informing the industry. But competent authorities have a role as well.
Yeah. So maybe because now you mentioned it, so it seems to be there seems to be the AI office, the competent authorities, and then these notified bodies. Can you say a little bit about what are these and how should they collaborate in between each other and also across countries, maybe?
Yeah. So on the European level, there is the AI board, and the AI board is responsible for the AI Act and especially for the legal boundaries, the guide rails. So when it comes to implementing acts, delegated acts, the standards, that's all going to be done on a policy level at a European level.
Yeah.
When it comes to are companies compliant with the legislation and all the guide rails coming from the AI office and the European Commission, it's the competent authorities that are going to supervise.
Mm-hmm.
And there are competent authorities are nationally organized. So every member state has their own competent authority, but there's also one, the EPBS for the European institutions, and you have a part of the AI office that is supervisor for the GPI models.
Yeah.
We have mainly national, but 2 on an international level. But those are independent competent authorities that are going to supervise. Then when it comes to product safety regulation, you have the system of notified bodies that give the third-party conformity assessment. And that's something you have already for many years under the product safety regulation in Europe. If under those regulations a product is considered to be a high risk and hence are required to have a third-party conformity assessment, then they will have to have a third-party conformity assessment on the AI aspects as well. And those notified bodies are usually, not by definition, but usually private institutions or semi-private institutions, and they are appointed by national competent authorities. So on a national level, our agency will also appoint to see whether or not they are compliant, if they have sufficient knowledge on AI and how to supervise the AI Act, then we can notify them, appoint them as a notified body, and then they're going to certify products.
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Mm-hmm. I think it's very clear. So you have the AI office who basically oversees the AI Act and also kind of like how the rules are defined. Then you have in these different countries, you have the notified the competent bodies who overseeing the implementation, and then you have and they also have these notified bodies that make sure that if you want to get conformity assessment, they help you with the conformity assessment. Or not only help you, but also kind of like check if your product is conform with the regulation. Something that I find then kind of interesting to understand is, I probably have to look on the one hand side on startups who might bring out new products and what this might mean to them. And also we have to think about innovation happening within an organization. So they're building maybe an AI solution. So the first question that I have, is there different when it comes to complying when you are a startup or maybe an SME that doesn't have a big resource of these big tech accelerators such as Google or Microsoft to comply with the AI Act? How is this going to look like? I think there's something like for startups and SME, they can even self-assess where their product is or something, right?
Yes. So as I said, it's risk-based approach.
Yeah.
And we look at it from a society point of view. So a small company, a startup, is usually smaller, lower risk than a big company, just because of the amount of clients. But also if it's in a medical devices and it might affect people's health, it's more dangerous than if it's a product that you use at home. So companies and especially startups and MSEs, if it's a limited amount of clients, if it's limited amount of risk, then don't spend too much time in the beginning on the AI Act. First, make sure that you have a product, get up to speed, and then in time. Well, what I do suggest is that at least you look at the high-risk requirements of the AI Act. Even if your product isn't high risk in the beginning, it's good to look at those because some things you need to organize from day one. And if you organize, for example, which data are you using it? Is there AI? Where do you get it from? Or some basic hygiene. If you start from day one, then if you get bigger or if it becomes a high-risk AI system, the impact on your organization will not be that big. But if you do those, for example, also an AI management system, or at least get somebody, it usually starts with one person feeling responsible for the AI in the organization and also making a balance between the business opportunities and the risks. You need somebody to in the end be responsible. And if you start with that, then usually things will go in a proper way. So don't make it too heavy. Don't put yourself too much burden because first, get the money running before you spend too much on this.
Yeah, maybe this is a good point to ask you, kind of like, for, you already mentioned it, also for an advice. So if I'm a business leader today, what would you say are kind of like, if I have an organization that is building their own AI solutions, or if I'm a startup that wants to bring out the AI products you mentioned already, what are the 2-3 things I should be aware of or look at, or what are tips that you have how I can prepare for enforcement of the AI Act? And also, I mean, I think this is also an interesting question. What I have, what does it mean to be compliant? So, for instance, what does it, when it means, for instance, an AI Act, I have to show transparency? Who tells me that I have to be transparent? Or is it kind of like, or what does it mean to be transparent? Or is it I have to work to my best extent showing that I'm actually transparent or something?
Well, nobody can on day one say you're compliant or you're not compliant, because there's still a lot of uncertainty. So as a competent authority, we look at a best effort. Is somebody doing the best things that they should do? So usually if we think there's an issue and we contact a company, the first thing we want to know, is somebody responsible?
Yeah.
Who do we talk to? And it's my advice: do it somebody on a management level, because or on a board of directors, because somebody needs to make the impact between business opportunities and risks. So you want somebody on a high level. So we want to know who's responsible, who are we going to talk to, and then I would suggest that at least you do an analysis. So you need to understand which products do we put on the market. That can't be very strange. Every company knows which products are going to be on the market. Then you can see whether or not those products or services, if there's an AI used in that product or in the supply chain. So it could also be if if you use data from a third party that uses AI, it's still part of, you automatically see that you're under the AI Act. So if there AI used somewhere in the supply chain, then if that's so, then you're under the AI Act. Then you should look at what's the intended purpose of my product, because it's the intended purpose of the product which decides in which category of the AI Act you are. So the next thing is that you can see which category am I in. Will my products be under the prohibited AI, or will it be high risk, or the transparency, or nothing? And based on that category, you can do a risk analysis. So as a competent authorities, those are the first questions that we're going to ask. Who's responsible? And did you do your analysis? Which products are there under the AI Act? How, in which category? And then did you do a risk analysis based on the category you're in? If you have that into place, most of it is done.
Yeah. Okay. So it seems like, okay, we can already quite well prepare, and I think the main insight is when you're not ready, you're not gonna be punished on the 2nd of August. And probably it's a lot of learning by doing, so be it for kind of like the practitioners, for us in the market, but also for the competent authorities that are there. One question that I have, so it also seems, because this seems to be a very open discussion, kind of like on both sides, that you also, for you, it's very important to get this feedback, how the AI Act is really put in practice in the market. And I have heard a couple of times the AI Act is also referred as a living regulation, because on the one hand side, AI is moving very quick. We see now there's a lot of geopolitical things happening, and I think this goes maybe also in a little bit of the direction of one of the questions that we have in the chat, where they asked, how do we think about what is happening in the US when it comes to regulation? And then also probably a lot of feedback then from the market, what is happening. So is this how we can understand the AI as a living regulation, and how might it evolve over time then?
Well, there are a few answers possible. So first of all, as I said, we still need to make guidelines and implementing acts, delegated acts, and the standards. So they're all evolving, and just like standards for cybersecurity, they need to be updated quite regularly. And the implementing and delegated acts are easier to update as well. So the AI Act will be relatively stable, but the more concrete way you're going to do it and how to interpret it, that will be more changeable. At the same time, you see that even an act, if I take the NIST directive or the IDIS regulation, you see they're all in a new phase. So after a few years, you see already, and the AI Act, I think, will not be different. Probably in a short time, we're already starting the talks about the AI Act number 2, because there are always things that haven't been taken into account. If you look at the AI Act now, it was written prior to the LLMs.
Yeah.
So halfway during the negotiations, suddenly the LLMs, the general purpose AI, had to be put in it, like as if general purpose AI is just one thing. Now we're 2 years ahead, and you think, okay, within the general purpose AI, there might be different kinds of general purpose AI with different risks, and maybe we need to diversify a bit in things. So I do think that also the AI Act will need an update because of new developments. So that means that if you are a company that is doing the AI Act, try to look at the main purpose of the AI Act, because I think the purpose will be the same, even though specific regulations might change a bit. And when it comes to, you said also the geopolitical context, you see that in the US, they go away from ethical AI. And what you see that a lot of other countries, I was during the AI Action Summit, I was in Paris at a conference of UNESCO. See that the more the US is going away from ethical AI, you see that the other countries in the world are more fearful and stress the importance of ethical AI even more. And I have a feeling that a lot of countries in the world are trying to stand behind Europe's back, hoping that the EU will stick to their morale on ethical AI, and that they will get a lot of support from other countries that want that same thing, but are not strong enough at the moment to fight that fight with the US. And Europe, because of the size of Europe and of the AI Act, but also the Digital Service Act and the Digital Market Act, I don't think the European Commission will adapt anything because of the Americans, because this is safety. I mean, you don't want to put the safety of Europeans to be thrown away because of some people in a different part of the world.
Yeah. What I want to do now is I want to talk very shortly about maybe a little bit more of the ugly side of the AI Act, because you said there is currently a lot of uncertainty. The competent authorities are not in place yet in the countries, and this has created a little bit, at least this is what I'm seeing in the German market, a boom in these compliant consultancies, and I also see some practitioners on the market kind of like selling certificates how to be compliant on the AI Act, which, as you said, is not really possible, because we don't really know what it means to be fully compliant yet. And you say everyone who's reading the AI Act and said he has understood it is not right, because no one really is understanding it. How do you see this in general? Do you have this, or maybe do you have this as well? Do you see this as well in the Netherlands, that this is happening right now? I mean, a lot of fear mongering is coming in the market. This fear is used to sell very quickly certificates, use this to be compliant with the AI Act and so on. And you have to buy AI literacy approaches, and you need your AI officer today. And if you don't have it, you're going to find up into millions. And these are things that are currently seen in the market on Instagram, on LinkedIn, in order to sell their compliance consultancies.
Thank you for addressing this. And especially as soon as somebody tries to give you fear, then don't trust it. That's a funny thing is a lot of people go into the AI literacy. If you look at the chapter of the AI literacy, Article 4, it's the only article that is not being supervised. There's no supervision on AI literacy.
Yeah.
So we cannot and will not fine based on if you're not compliant with the AI literacy.
Yeah.
So everybody who says that you have to, on the other hand, but that comes more in the second part, if there is an incident with your AI system and it's due to the fact that people that use that AI system don't understand how it works and don't understand how it works on a safe way, then the lack of AI literacy can be a reason for us to give a higher fine or a little less time to do mitigating policies. So we'll be more strict if you have your AI literacy not in place. But the idea of the AI literacy is that the people that make either decisions within the organization or that are going to use AI systems understand the risks involved and understand where you can use it for and where you cannot use it for. And I do think it's very difficult for a consultant company to give a kind of certificate on that topic. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah, it answers very well. So what I want to do now is, because we have been speaking 40 minutes, I want to slowly go over to some of the questions that we have in the chat, and also people who are listening, please feel free to ask them. Huub, I know that you invited also someone, I think from the supervising authorities in Austria, and I see that Malues is also kind of like in the backstage. So what I'm gonna do, and Manuel, if you hear us, I'm gonna also kind of like invite you on stage. So we have three more people, or two. We have two people, or us three, to maybe talk a little bit more about the questions before we go over to these questions. Maybe a little bit on publicity on our sides. What is this thing that we are doing? I mean, we are training a lot of people. We have various offerings when it comes to AI, understanding how to use AI for yourself to be more efficient with the Gen AI specialist. If you want to bring AI more into the organization than the AI manager. And we also have something that prepares you maybe to be this more regulatory counteract in the organization, the AI officer, where we show you how to assess risk, to understand also the reasoning behind the AI Act. And we try, I mean, it's not completely possible yet, but prepare you as good as possible what it means to work together then with the authorities. And because, I mean, Huub, we just talked about it, we have seen so many kind of like doing fear mongering and selling their stuff. We give a money back guarantee. And now, before we go over to the questions, I want to give Manuel very shortly the possibility also to introduce yourself. I put you now into the stage. Maybe say a little bit about what is your role, what is your doing, why you're here today, and then let's have a look at some of the questions.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I really enjoyed the discussion between you and Huub. Good to see you again. I wasn't aware that I should be on stage as well, so I was walking around. But I'm here. My role is, I have two roles. I'm responsible for all the international activities within the National AI Coalition in the Netherlands. I also work a lot with the Dutch government on AI policy, strategies, and so on. But I'm also the vice president of the European AI Forum, which is a European collaboration between AI coalitions. At this moment, I'm not sure how many members we do have, but it's growing and growing, and we almost have every European country on board. In the Netherlands, we are a public-private collaboration regarding AI, but the European AI Forum is is mainly we do have the focus of the industry. We have a lot of members in each country. And for us, it's important to collaborate with the regulators, but also with the European Commission and the Parliament. And we try to bring in the perspective of the industry.
Okay, perfect. That's amazing. That's very cool to have your perspective. Now, when it comes to answering some of the questions, and again, for the people, if you have questions now, feel free. The time is now to ask them. Here we have a first from Saba. So, what concrete steps is the US taking to reduce its dependency on US-controlled AI infrastructure and cloud services? I mean, we have seen now with the AI Continent Plan some ideas put forward, but it would be interesting to see also what you're thinking on this and what you are seeing.
The question is to me or to Huub?
Whoever wants to take it.
Okay, well, this is my favorite topic. So I will take the floor. No, I had meetings about this topic all morning. When it comes to sovereignty, of course, AI plays an important role in the EU stack. Whether you talk about cloud, IoT, the infrastructure itself, satellites, whatever, AI plays a role in every part of the stack. But sovereignty, I think it's the main topic at this moment, but it's not that easy to get it organized. So I think finally we all agree we need more sovereignty. But we don't have many examples at this moment about how to get it organized, and that makes it very interesting moment at this time. It's also the first time that Europe does understand that it's Europe, because no one can provide this cloud by themselves, and we also can't do it in the Netherlands. So providers have to collaborate, but also within Europe, we have to get a more decentralized approach and decentralized infrastructure, which is also a benefit. So if we succeed in this, then we do have the answer to the centralized, alternative like we see in the US and China. But when you want to build a decentralized approach, it's about technical solutions, but also about the governance and also the willing to collaborate. And it's also about changing the rules. In Europe, we are used to a specific mindset about the markets, how, for example, the government does buy their software, hardware, everything.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work anymore, or at least it has to change a bit. Not the values are fine, but we have to change some legal rules. And I think in Europe we have to accept that not every country can do it all. So we also have to say this country will focus more on this part of the EU stack, and this country will focus more on the chips, or will be more focused on AI and materials or whatever. And that's also new. So we have to make a better plan about who's in the lead for what, because no country can do it all. So it comes to collaboration and new leadership and new rules.
And I think also to jump in here, and maybe Huub, I'm pretty sure that you're going to agree with this. I think what we're witnessing now when it comes to politics on AI, I feel like for the first time, I'm actually happy that we have something like the AI Act that gives us, as you said, a certain level of trust of things where on agreement on values, how we want to develop AI. And I think this is the reason why now suddenly a lot of people asking about sovereignty, because I hear this in industry all the time, is they're like, I don't trust these American providers anymore. Not that I trust American providers, but I don't trust the politics behind it anymore. That the data I will put in or give over or hand over for trading and so on with, for instance, American providers is safe anymore or not, right? And this is one of the actions that I'm seeing. Hope you also wanted to say something.
Yeah, but the AI Act is one of the most easiest acts to follow. So I think we have other legal issues. It's not the AI Act. So I'm a huge fan of the AI Act, and it's not that complex. Of course, Huub mentioned it already. We should talk about AI Act version 2. But it's more, are we able to adapt ourselves to changing circumstances, but the idea behind the AI Act will survive, and you have to tweak it a bit, but we have to tweak a lot of things. So that's not the biggest problem, and we should be able to adapt as fast as possible when it's needed. But I really, I'm a huge fan of the AI Act, and I think for a lot of companies, because of the topic of AI, it sounds complex, but the act itself isn't that complex at all. But we have other legal issues we have to discuss.
But what the problem? I have kind of a problem with the question. So EU is doing a lot of different programs in order to stimulate more AI and cloud. But the problem is AI is going very fast, and by definition, governments are going slow. They need because of the role that they have. So I do think that we shouldn't wait for the EU to solve this problem. That's why we think as competent authorities, we need companies to do it. So governments give the guide rails to make sure it's ethical and it's safe. But it's just like a highway. So the AI Act is the highway. There are some guide rails, but the companies need to drive there, use that space that has been created, because the governments are never going fast enough.
I fully agree. And I also see a mind shift in how the government does work together with the industry. And sorry, Huub, but a few years ago, the regulators, they were quite arrogant for the industry. So it was really hard to work together with the regulators, but also with the government itself. And I think, because of the geopolitical situation, but also how fast AI is moving, things are changing, and it's good to have a new balance. So it shouldn't be left over all to the industry, and also not all to the governments, but there should be a new balance. And I think it's time for the industry to step up and to help get Europe safe and sovereign. But the industry is really needed at this moment. And I think all ears are open within Europe, within the Commission, the Parliament, but also within the Dutch government, with the regulators. So the moment is there.
Yeah. So it seems, if I sum up also a little bit what we talked about before, is hopefully now the approach is much more kind of like we are in this together. So the industry and also when it comes to regulation, and it's a lot of learning by doing, and it has to be much more of a two-way conversation when it comes to regulating artificial intelligence and approaching this whole topic of AI, because it's new for all of us, right?
Not only a conversation, we also have to do something.
Yeah.
There was enough talking in the past years.
So going over
let's stop all the communication. Let's start doing a bit more.
Yeah. So going over to a next question from Bijou. So regarding product safety, 2 questions. Will the harmonized standards be available by the August 2027 when requirements for high-risk Annex 1 becomes effective? And I think the reasoning behind this is what we have seen now before, for instance, on 2nd of February, when the first 2 chapters of the AI Act went live. I think it went live on the 2nd of February, and I think guidance we got only in this week, like on the 5th or 6th. So sometimes it becomes a little bit challenging because we know in theory we have to comply to certain things, and then we get information from the AI office only afterwards. Do we think this will happen only now at the beginning because we have so much short time, and then it becomes easier once we see the competent authorities? And then there's the second question, but maybe let's try to address the first question first.
So when it comes to harmonized standards, the European Commission has a kind of, they did a request to the European standardization organizations, and it's officially up to them what the timing will be. On a personal level, without any formal role, I'm not sure. I doubt whether or not the harmonized standards will be available in August 27. I think the chances are not that high, but that doesn't have to be a problem. You still have to comply with the AI Act, and the requirements are written down in the AI Act. And the idea is that you have to show you need to be in control of that, you be compliant with the regulations. If there are no standards, you have much more flexibility as a company to decide how you think that you're going to be compliant with the AI Act. So as long as they're not harmonized standards, it doesn't mean that it has to be an issue for a company. It could even be easier because you have more flexibility to choose your own way of showing your compliance. When there are harmonized standards, you have little space to maneuver. You have more standardization, but little space to maneuver. So it doesn't have to be an issue if it's not ready on time. The third-party conformity assessments are only when it comes to Annex 1, the high-risk Annex 1, not high-risk Annex 3. Even stronger, third-party conformity assessments are not allowed for Annex 3 unless it's about the Annex 3A, the biometrics. If there are no harmonized standards, then it could be that there must be a third-party conformity assessment only for the part of the biometrics. But in general, Annex 3 high risk, no. And of course, the rest, not at all. For prohibited and transparency, it's not necessary. So only for the high risk Annex 1.
Okay.
Well, within the European AI Forum, we also have this question quite often. A lot of companies, they want to help, and they have their opinion about European clouds, but also about standardization and so on, or the audits. And a lot of, it seems that they don't have enough time to prepare because the Commission comes with a plan and another plan and a giga plan and whatever. But I think it's an ongoing conversation at this moment, also the AI Act itself. So, and also the European Commission does understand that it's an ongoing conversation. So I would not focus too much on deadlines. Of course, if there's a request for input, deliver your input if you have it. But there will be a new consultation, and even when there's not a consultation, you can bring in your inputs, whether it's standards or another requirement. From the European AI Forum, we did make a report about standardization. The standards, it's not doable for most companies to meet all the requirements in time. But a lot of people are aware of this. So we should focus on building the standards instead of meeting the right timelines. So don't worry about it. It's better to focus on having the right network, building these standards within Europe.
Yeah.
And do your risk assessment and tackle the highest risks.
Exactly.
Use common sense, then you get a long way.
Yeah, that's always what I say to my student before we go into it. Let's think about it first, and then let's see what it means, because quite often we have an intuitive understanding about what it means and kind of like risk and also responsible towards other people. Because I mean, we live kind of like we have our values and our value systems. Looking at the time, and we're already kind of like coming towards the end, what I would like to do is I would give you the time, maybe both of you, for 1 minute, maybe just your last words that you have, maybe to address the people, and say a little bit how they can prepare now for these competent authorities and for the enforcement of the AI Act.
Well, we talked about geopolitical issues and sovereignty. Also, from the competent authorities' point of view, we want as much AI innovation in Europe. So we all must work together on that as well. And speed is everything. So go, go, go. And just sometimes look at what are the requirements for high risk and use common sense and try to do at least your risk analysis. But don't wait too long. Don't wait for the standards, and use the AI Act as a kind of guideline on your risk assessment. What do you need to take into account, and if it's okay with the AI Act, then probably can put it safely on the market as well. So go.
Thank you. Mario, what are
my
your last words?
advice, my advice would be, okay, in the Netherlands, the regulators are quite well prepared and they have an idea about how the sandbox should look like. They did have a test to prepare themselves. There's information about sandbox, but that's not the case in every European country. But I'm sure all regulators are willing to work together with the industry. So if you have a use case or a company where you're not sure about the AI Act or you want to get in contact with the regulator, just reach out. You have to figure it out together, and the bill is there to do it together. So feel free to reach out. My other advice would be, what are we talking about? AI. For me, the European stack is more important than AI itself because AI is involved in the whole infrastructure. So I would also love to see more interaction between different communities. In the Netherlands, there's a separate cloud community, a separate community for IoT, a separate community for satellites, separate community for AI, and it would be helpful if those communities are more connected, because otherwise or chips, for example, it's also a separate community. And we need more collaboration between these communities and technical expertise, because they're now too much in silos. So if you are in between or you're working in one or two of these communities, try to bring them together, because you will get a whole different discussion about the AI Act and the sandboxes when we see it more, when we see the bigger picture. And that's needed to build a sovereign Europe.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I mean, very good last words. Thank you so much for taking the time for being there to share some of the insights how the people are thinking about enforcing and supervising the AI Act. I feel this is very different to what a lot of people here, at least in Germany, in the market, talk about when I talk about them with the AI Act. So I think it was very good to also have your perspective. And it would be great, I think, to even more seeing this and understanding the mindset, so we don't have so much fear mongering in the market anymore. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you also so much for the viewers and listeners. I hope this was interesting for you. If you like this, follow us. We do more kind of these events where we invite experts for lunch sessions and talk with them about the most pressing topics in the world of AI. So again, thank you so much, and see you the next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.